Welcome to Hawks Zone. You're listening to Seahawks After Dark, man. I'm coming to you guys live late night after this game. Just gonna give you my reactions here. We're not gonna talk too much stats because this was kind of the game where some of the stats just don't jump out at you, man. We're gonna talk about Sam Darnold. Man, I, let's touch on that right away because I thought he was impressive. I thought this offense now, I mean the game as a whole, man. I mean 40, 44-13 over the Saints. Just one of those games that you needed to win, but you needed to not play down to your competition, and that's what we've seen in recent years. And this is one of those games where you were finally like, we finally showed up and we are this team and we don't care who our competition is. We're going to play how we play. And when a Saints team who, look, the first two games played tight games against Arizona and San Francisco, like they're they they're still an NFL football team, but they came into our house where we've struggled and there's no secret, and we just put an absolute beatdown on all three phases of the game. It really was. And you talk about guys that were still out, Nick Emenwari, who really hasn't played at all this season, besides the first little bit there of the first quarter. Witherspoon out and Julian Love out. So you talk about Spoon and Love, like two huge pieces of your secondary not playing, and this defense not missing the beat. Yeah, they have Spencer Rattler, a young quarterback there, but again, they talk about guys like Josh Jobe stepping up and just looking like an absolute stud, and just across the board in that secondary. Really, okay, Ty Okada has to fill in a little bit. Hell of a tackler. It's tough to watch him in coverage, but again, guys that normally aren't going to get a lot of playing time, stepping up and just balling in the secondary. But and that's kind of where I want to start with the home field at Lumen Field here with the 12th man and all that stuff that we've talked about that we just haven't seen. And you saw it today where this is the kind of ball that's going to bring the 12s and the fans back to relevance and to where we want to see when you come into our house. This is what you're going to expect. You're going to be scared to come into our building. Now, look, it's one game. It's against the Saints, but it's about enjoying what you saw out there in all three phases. But this is what we need. We needed a game like this where really after the first quarter, the game was over. And it's not about, is this team going to give, is it going to be a trap game because you got up 3 scores after one and, you're going to let your foot off the gas. This is not a team I don't think you got to worry about the way Mike McDonald has his team prepared. They came in and they came prepared because this could have been an easy game. You want to talk about a trap game. They played 2 close games early on in the season where they had chances to, win those games. And you could have said, hey, look, the Saints are coming in. They're not very good. But again, we're not that good at home. Mike McDonald had this team prepared and ready to go. And they put a beat down on the Saints and said, listen, no more. You're coming in our building. It's going to start to mean something again. And at least it gave me a sense of hope that, okay, can this trend continue as far as the coaching is concerned? Because I think you really saw coaching on display, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Like I mentioned, 2 key pieces out, and the way these guys just played hard the whole entire game. And now you got guys stepping up, Josh Jobe, of that nature, stepping in for Spoon, Hendricks. Like it's insane. So, this is kind of, this to me is coaching. This is preparation, that next man up, and you're really not missing a beat. Now, would you like Spoon back? Would you like Love back? Of course. But this is giving you the opportunity now to rest these guys. You don't have to rush a Devin Witherspoon back because you're clicking right now in defense. And the hopes are you're going to have these guys ready, give them a few more days. They're going to be ready to go for that Arizona game on a short week, Thursday Night Football. But again, watching these guys fly around, playing hard at the football, it's just really, really refreshing to see. And the biggest thing is, you look at the score today, it's reminiscent of those dominant teams of the past. And really, and it was all 3 phases, right? Because, you turn on the score, you turn on the TV, if you coming in late, first quarter coming to the end, you're saying, okay, Sam Darnold's doing his thing. You had a Tory Horton punt return for a TD. we're going to get into Tory Horton. Derek Young on special teams making his mark there with a nice return. So special teams doing their thing, just really, which was a concern coming to the season. And let's touch on Tory Horton. Let's talk Tory Horton because I was a big like, MVS, cutting him. I don't know. He's been in the league X amount of years. He's going to give you that veteran, presence at that position that still have question marks. And the thing about Tory Horton that you knew and I knew is that you had that versatility with the special teams, and it was really on display today. So, and now what you're seeing in the receiving game with Tory Horton, now you can see why the Hawks were so high on this kid. Picking him up in the 5th round. Steve Smith high on the kid. And you saw it on display today. He's really starting to emerge early that this guy could not only look the part, but be the part next to a JSN. And you still have Cooper Kupp, made a couple of grabs, but today wasn't like a huge sample size where you could say, what you look at Cooper's stats, you look at whoever's stats, because really, I think it was the first. They had 3 scores on 8 plays or something like that. So it was like, kick return or punt return for TD. They're getting great field position on a turnover on 4th down. So there was a lot of those things where they didn't just need a lot of plays. So the stats, and in the second half was basically garbage time. Drew Lock comes in essentially the whole 4th quarter. They're running the football. So, really 44, they could have had 60 if they really want to, put their foot on the gas and do what they do. But just a lot of great things were happening. Tory Horton to me is one of those guys where you can see the versatility, not only on special teams, but now taking the top off the field. Sam Darnold put an absolute dime where only Tory could go get it in down the field, down that go route, down the sidelines. And you saw how Tory had that next gear. He had that 6th gear where I thought, first of all, the ball was on an absolute line. And really, if Tory wasn't going to get it, nobody was going to get it. You get back to the huddle, next play, Tory just put that thing in 6th gear, put it out there, and Sam just dropped an absolute dime for TD. So that was what you want to see. That's what we were worried about when DK Metcalf was no longer here. Okay, who's gonna stretch the field? You talk about the MVS thing. Well, he's a stretch the field kind of guy. He was in a Clint Kubiak system, but again, limited in what he could do. Now, if they weren't high on Tory and he didn't know China camp, MVS would still be on this roster. But again, you like what you got from this kid early on. Back-to-back games with TDs now. Just you see the speed. It was on full display today, and he's just gonna keep building the confidence and just be a great addition to this receiving core. And JSN just is proven that he's just going to be Mr. Consistent and doing his thing and getting open and running clean, crisp routes and being that number 1 receiver. So I'm liking what I'm seeing early on from the receiving core. Now, talk about Sam Darnold. I was super impressed by Sam today. Sam was, statistically, it's not going to jump off the page at you, but how confident he looked, how poised he looked back there, and just the throws he is making is giving me a ton of confidence. Geno Smith, I like this time here. I wasn't like the biggest Geno Smith guy. I like what he did. I think the first year was an awesome story. Then I was ready to see, okay, who's coming up next? And there just wasn't the next guy. And then when we pivoted to Sam, I really liked the move. I thought, of course he had a great year last year. And then just what he has become and kind of grown into. And now just the way he's throwing the football is really impressive. The deep ball to JSN, he dropped it in there. Dropped it right in the bucket. JSN really nothing crazy with the route. He just honestly tried to outrun the guy. He didn't have a ton of separation. I think there was like 2 or 3 Saints around him, and Sam drops it in there for an absolute dime. So that's what you're getting from Sam Darnold. And again, that confidence is building and building. Now the running game, again, the offensive line, it's still a work in progress. What I like to see from Ken Walker today, though, was how he ran the football hard. The two TDs he had, like that was put your head down and you know get in the end zone and get and just willed it. And that's what you want to see from your backs. Again, Zach Charbonnet out with the foot. We had some other guys step up today as well. Halani getting some action in there as well. So, good to see. And that's what we talked about with the running back position, man. I mean, you talked about, or in yeah, even in camp when we were kind of talking about like Damian Martinez and Halani and Kenny Mack and Sharbs and, it's a tough decision. Then you lose Kenny. Now Zach's on the shelf, should be ready to go. Is nothing serious, but that's just the position, right? So, again, Ken Walker just willing his way there, didn't have a lot to work with. I like the outside zone run play. I know it was called back, but you saw how, it could work there. They got a penalty there on the hole, but the way they hit it, so if you start seeing more of that outside zone running, we obviously know that's part of the scheme. So if we can sort of get that dialed in, I think that's going to really excel for Ken. So again, 3 games in, you're encouraged what you're seeing from this offense. I mean, obviously today was, just one of those games where you just sit back, relax. You knew the game was over. It was almost boring in the second half because, they were just going to run the ball out and garbage time in the fourth quarter, pretty much the whole fourth quarter. But again, it was super impressive. The defensive side of the ball, you talk about the defensive front. Again, the pressure rate looks good. They're not getting home all the time, but again, Byron Murphy getting on the stat sheet, love to see it. You see Leonard Williams getting in there. You see, Derek Hall, who looks impressive so far. And Chena's, I mean, who else really stood out today? Mike Morris, right? Mike Morris, kind of a forgotten guy, has had some injuries, Michigan dude, and now starting to show up a little bit. And again, depth coaching, you love to see it. So Mike Morris is like, hey, here's another piece. And you're talking about a position where there's a ton of rotation. You need that. You need that depth of that position. So you get a guy like Mike Morris able to contribute, then that's just bonus, right? You love to see that from a guy like Mike, and you feel good about that too, because he's had a rough start, right, in his Seahawks career. A lot of people writing a guy like that off, but that's the thing. Some of these guys take time. He's still a young guy. I think he's 24 years old. So again, Mike Morris stepping up. The defensive front as a whole, just really, really impressive that I saw. So super, super excited. But guys, I mean, what can you say? What can you say? It's one of those things where it was just a great game overall. I'm now they're 2-1. Now they got to go into Arizona on a short week. But again, it was one of those games where they could, relax, sit back a little bit in the second half, rest the guys they need to rest, like Sam Darnold, and Ken Walker, all those guys. So it was just really good to see that. So you're almost a little more rested, especially mentally too. It wasn't a game where you had to fight till the end, and because that can drain a team too. So now you get in a situation where everybody's just relaxed. You're hyped on the win. You enjoy it tonight, and then you get back to work and get ready for the Arizona Cardinals. So it's just really one of those exciting games as a fan to just enjoy an ass kicking for once and not playing down to your opponent's level, which we've been known to do from past Seahawks games, guys. So yeah, guys, I'm just gonna be hanging out a little longer, get some comments in here. If you want to get some comments in here, we'll take a few. We're really gonna break down the game tomorrow. I have Dana O'Gorman coming on the show. We're gonna break down this game, get her perspective on what she likes, especially from the defensive side of the ball. She's a huge defensive fan, and wasn't a huge Mike McDonald hire at the beginning, but really loves what she's seen so far. So we're going to get her take on all that, and just as a whole, what she thinks of this team. I'm also going to talk to her about who some of the young rookies that's really impressing her so far in this rookie class that we've been so high on, especially after this draft that we feel like, hey, from top to bottom, we talked about Tory Horton, you're not even talking about a guy like Gray Zabel because look, if you're not mentioning his name, he's probably doing okay. So, again, though, from top to bottom, you go down the list of Tory Horton in the 5th round, um, just Elijah Roy, who you're still waiting for them to like, come up with some more plays with him. But again, it was such a small sample size because how many plays really they ran even the first quarter. I mean, to really spread the ball around, there just wasn't that opportunity. So again, they're sticking to the run. Kubiak sticking to the game plan. You like to see it. You feel like maybe it was a one-off in the first game of the year against San Francisco. He just really, I mean, look, first game, new offense, new quarterback, and all that kind of stuff. We come on here, everyone's disappointed against the Niners because A, it's the Niners. B, it was like, hey, this is supposed to be a completely new style of offense, and you just didn't see it. But now in the last 2 games, you're starting to see the Clint Kubiak that we expected. So that's exciting. So what to expect in Arizona? A lot of the same. That's really it. Again, I like what I'm seeing from Sam. I'm liking what I'm seeing from obviously Tory Horton played an amazing game today. And then just consistent with JSN, Cooper Kupp's going to be consistent. I think he's going to be there when you need him. And that's really what you're going to get from Coop. And again, the running game's got to get going a little bit more, but I think it will. And it's just a matter of, them just getting used to this offense. It's still brand new. I always say 6 games. Let's wait to that 6-game mark to really start to evaluate and what the identity is of this offense and then this team as a whole. But I think if you look at the identity, this defense is just flying around hard to the football. Can't say enough about the defense, and it's just exciting. So anyways, it's just one of those games, enjoy it. It was a blowout. It's at home. You got to feel good about that because you really got to bring the confidence back here at home because we needed it. We have been horrendous at home. It is the Saints, but again, a team weaker than you coming into your house. This is exactly the type of performance that you want to see. So, that's it, guys. It's just one of those things. Not much more to say tonight. Enjoy the win. Like I said, Dana's coming on the show tomorrow. That's a pre-record, but we're going to try to drop it tomorrow night. If not, it's going to be ready to go on to the following day, but we're going to try to get that going. So, guys, make sure you subscribe to the channel, all that good stuff. Share the videos, like the videos, all that helps out the channel. So that's it, man. Seahawks 44, Saints 13. That's it. Go Hawks.